So good morning everybody, myself Acharya Vishvendra. This is my next video on the exam anxiety, which is the root problem of students preparing for JEE and NEET. So first of all, we should feel that what is exam anxiety. So exam anxiety is basically the emotional conflict where you have multiple feelings. These feelings include hurry, increased heartbeat, variable blood pressure, inability to focus, being restless, and all these symptoms can be related to a single thing, which is the exam anxiety. Let's try to find that what causes it and what can be the possible solutions of exam anxiety. Let's start with the thought experiment. Let's start working on a problem. So let's start with the rotational motion problem of physics. Suppose there is a rigid body having its center at C. And suppose you apply a force F on it in horizontal direction such that its distance from the center is h in the vertical direction. Now you have to find h so that it can do pure rolling on smooth surface. Smooth surface means it is having no friction. So you have to find the height at which it can roll without friction. So I just want you to try this problem. I'm just giving you 20 seconds time so that you can rack your brain to find the answer of this particular question. Well, the answer to this particular question is that h is equals to k square by r, where k is the radius of gyration of the body. Now let us focus on the very process that how I have come to this conclusion. So suppose there is no friction. So because of the force, there will be a certain acceleration of the body, and because of the torque, there will be a certain angular acceleration of the body. So if we think about the lowest point, it will be having an acceleration A due to the motion of center of mass, and with respect to the center of mass, it will be having an acceleration R alpha. So if there is a point P on the very surface, then if the surface is stationary, that means suppose there is a point P dash just below this point P, and P dash is on the ground, and this is at rest. At rest means its acceleration is 0 constantly, although at rest means velocity is 0. But if velocity is 0 constantly, it ultimately turns out that acceleration is 0. Net acceleration, let's name that as A dash. Now using relative acceleration, we can say that acceleration of point P is A minus R alpha, which is 0. So we get the relation that A is equal to R alpha. This is the first information which we have to fetch. Now the second thing is acceleration can be given as force by mass, assuming that entire force is acting on the center of mass. And third thing is that alpha will be torque upon the moment of inertia, which is mk square. Torque can be given as force multiplied by the perpendicular distance, which is h, upon mk square. So if we combine all these three equations, then we can come to the conclusion that using these three equations, so from here we can say that alpha is A by R and A is F by M. So this is F by MR, and which is also equal to FH by MK square. So F will get cancelled out, M will get cancelled out. So ultimately you get H is equal to K square by R. So this is the fourth step. So there is a live example that I started from this point, then I followed a certain algorithm comprising of 4 steps, and after successfully executing the 4 steps, I came to the conclusion that H is equals to K square by R. Now to reach up to the 4th step, the first thing that you need to have is a sharp focus on the problem itself. And that sharp focus means your brain waves must be in the gamma spectrum, which corresponds to a frequency greater than 30 Hertz. So as you might be knowing that brain and mind, suppose this is brain of a student and this is his mind. So these two interact through the brain waves. Brain waves is the interaction medium between brain and the mind. And these brain waves have got certain frequencies that you normally called as the vibes. You must have observed that we say that that particular person has very high vibes, or you must have heard from motivational speakers that always been high vibes. So that high vibes ultimately corresponds to the frequency of the brainwaves in the gamma spectrum. Generally, the brainwave frequency of humans are categorized as alpha, beta, gamma, delta and theta. Out of these, beta waves corresponds to the highest frequency. Gamma waves corresponds to the highest frequency, beta is just lower than gamma. And gamma rays also corresponds to the electromagnetic spectrum. In that also the electromagnetic spectrum is RM, Ramilu, XG. R stands for radio waves, M for micro, I for infra, L for light, U for ultra, X for X-ray and G for gamma ray. Although cosmic rays also exist which have a frequency even greater than the gamma waves, but we are restricting to the electromagnetic waves. So gamma rays have the highest frequency. So it corresponds to the same thing also. So the entire turning point is, the very first condition is that your mind-brain system must have a frequency in the gamma spectrum, which is this fundamental solution of all the performance related issues, whether it's exam anxiety, whether it is public speaking anxiety, whether it is relationship anxiety. Any sort of anxiety can be solved if you work on the frequency of your brain waves. Because when the frequencies are low, we have negative feelings, negative vibrations, negative thoughts, and we ultimately transfer it to the other person. That will affect your relations with any person, maybe your father, mother, friend, or your teacher or anybody. So the solution lies in changing the brainwave frequency, which I shall be discussing in the next video. Thank you. Have a nice day.